In my first year of university, I was randomly selected to live in an all-male dorm. And after having been at an all-boys high school sent by my parents, I felt well persecuted. Was I fated to never meet girls or go on a date? And the only guys on campus I always see having a girl around, I told my brother, my first dinner home, are the guys I see playing acoustic guitars. My brother tensed at this. He could sense the question coming. But I waited until dinner was over, and my mom always brought out some pie and ice cream for dessert. And then, very casually, in the place where I would ask my brother to pass me the ice cream, I said, "Hey, man, could you maybe teach me some guitar?" "Yeah, sure," he said, and his hand twisted over the French vanilla. Didn't matter. He knew he'd been caught fair and square. "What song do you want to learn?" he said. "Crash by Dave Matthews Band?" It was the only song I'd heard on campus. "Okay," he said, sounding very demoralized. For a kid who loved the blues back to Robert Johnson, who worshiped Thelonious Monk and Dave Brubeck, who played the hillbilly runs of Leo Kottke to relax at night, the Dave Matthews Band, especially their song Crash, a sappy song about a wannabe peeping Tom, that sat, self-satisfied on one chord, empty of harmonic or rhythmic curiosity, was what he considered a deep, deep insult to his instrument. Later that week, in the middle of my performance, he put his hand and muted the strings. Fuck, man. He had just taken up the habit of swearing in casual conversation. "Look, I know what you're up to, and this shit only works for a third guitarist." "Like in a band?" I asked. "No, man, that's a fucking bassist. No real band has a third guitar. This is like a process you go through. The first guitarist," he went on, "would be me in a week after I had learned one or two songs. You'll bring that guitar to the first fucking party you can," he said. "But just around the time people are getting relaxed, you'll start playing something, and you won't have an ear yet, so you won't hear what you sound like. You'll just hear what's in your head. You'll run out of songs, and then you'll leave the party alone with your guitar. And then all the people afterwards the next day will say, 'Who was the weird guy playing guitar at 8 p.m. at the party?' If you keep pushing, though," he said, leaning back, talking to himself more than me, "you'll end up being the second guitarist. You'll learn more songs, you'll get good, and the guitar will stay in its case at the party, at least at first, until people start dancing. And then some hot chick will come up to you and ask you to play her favorite song. But you won't know it. You'll offer something else, something flashy. And you'll go into the corner of some dark kitchen and you'll try to impress her. And as you're focusing on getting all the notes right, you won't notice when her boyfriend comes and takes her away. And she'll calm him down outside and they'll go home together and you'll still be in the kitchen trying to get the notes right. And the next day, all the people at the party will say, 'Who is the weird guy playing guitar alone in the dark kitchen?' And the host will say, 'It's the same guy. I don't know why I keep inviting him. I just don't know.' I should add, my brother at 16 was not generally known for his wise advice. I was the one the people in the family listened to, moved less by the content of my opinions and more by the golden boy packaging bestowed on me by the fates. I was the first male born to the family. I grew taller than all the previous generations. But as my brother spoke to me, he took on the gravity of a Moses. 'You'll quit,' he said. 'Or you'll play the same songs over and over again where no one can hear them in your room,' which is the same fucking thing as quitting. 'Or maybe you'll become a third guitarist. You'll develop your tastes. You'll learn everything you can. And then when the party's burned down at 2 a.m. and some other first guitarist has blown through his 2 songs, someone will say, "Does anyone else know something to play?" And you'll go, "Sure. What do you want to hear?" And that's the guy that gets the fucking girl. Back at school, I immediately picked up a steel string guitar from a local shop and really felt compelled to practice, playing so loudly and so badly, the girlfriend of a roommate of mine skipped her normal polite knock, burst through my door and said with a whispering hate, I know you're trying to find yourself or whatever, but please stop doing it next to our room. I brought that guitar to the first party I was invited to, and at first I thought my brother was wrong. Girls did like a first guitarist, at least at first. Maybe a few days, maybe a week, but eventually you left the party alone with your guitar. We would try to play music together, my brother and I, whenever I would return home, but the golden boy sheen would rub off under his spontaneous melodies and rhythms, his deep knowledge of musical styles, and soon my part in the music, like a glamour under true love, shriveled up and died. I began to feel stuck. When I would go to the campus through the student ghetto, a limbo of student rooming houses encircling the main school, I would hear them, the other first guitarists, calling from the unwashed porches. If you stood for a moment, you could hear them spout their philosophies of inspiration over effort through clouds of marijuana smoke. They were always there with the same 4 chords, the same tired lyrics of infatuation, always available for a girl. I didn't want it up like that. So instead, I signed on with an instructor in the music school, a deeply religious man who loved music from South America and Cuba. I learned notation and practice technique, and soon I started to play for some friends of mine, and then at cafes, then at weddings, and then at concerts for 100 or so people at a time. I began to feel a new confidence in music, and I asked my instructor if I had what it took to go pro. "You're good," he said, "but you're a big fish in a small pond. You need to get out of here. God does not will talent lightly, you know." I felt he was speaking more to himself than me, but he recommended a festival in Quebec where the St. Lawrence meets the ocean, and I got in there, getting into a master class, a kind of make or break moment where a student sees if they have what it takes to become a professional. The master was a well-known Parisian guitarist who delicately smoked a cigarette beside me on stage as I played for 50 or so professional musicians in the audience from all over the world. I hit my last note, the crowd clapped politely, and the Parisian guitarist said nothing. He said nothing, and he did not move, except to slowly bring the cigarette to his mouth and tap it out on the new pine of the stage. He sat like that, silent, unmoving, smoking, for, I don't know, 5 minutes, an hour. It was long enough for the crowd to grow restless. Finally, he took a long drag. "I know what you're trying to do, and I'm here to tell you it will not work. You are too boring." The crowd laughed, but the master Parisian guitarist brought his hand down like a guillotine. "Chut! I am not making a joke. I am sorry to be severe, but I have been all over the world with these festivals. I have heard the same thing so many times. A student who has good hands, who gets all the note perfect, but feels nothing. This song is about 2 people from different tribes who have fallen into such love they are willing to die for it. This melody here, right here, it is them about to give their lives for their love, and I don't feel it when you play. Do you feel it?" At that point, I just felt very, very hot. The rhythms are Cubano, dancehall, salsa, bolero. Have you ever danced them? You're what, mid-20s? You've never been to Cuba? Miami? I wanted to say I'd been to Disney World. You need to go out and live to play this music. So I'm sorry, you are too boring, like so many others. He made me stay on stage for a while after that, teaching me things about rhythm, things about vibrato, different things I could do with my hands. I don't remember any of them. When it was over, I walked stone-faced down the aisle to the silent audience. I could only wonder what they were thinking. Outside, the girl I'd met at the festival found me. I felt very cold, and I could no longer keep my composure. I cursed and complained and hurled insults, but the truth was, I no longer wanted to be the center of attention, the man on the stage. I was done. I became an agent for some musicians I knew at the school, a guitar quartet that was gaining a reputation around the world, a prodigy called the Jukebox who knew all of the modern guitar repertoire, an opera singer who performed in 4 languages. I traveled and listened and enjoyed my silence. Finally, the fates conspired to bring me and my brother home at the same time. There was still pie and ice cream, but not much to say. We were both regrouping and deciding on next moves. Music became a way to pass the time at first, but as I played, I could hear what the other musicians I'd met might do with some of the things I was playing. I developed my own ideas, my own little innovations. Now, when I played, unlike when I played for the Parisian guitarist, when the lovers fell in love, I could feel it. The music moved slowly when it wanted to, faster when it needed to. It felt self-contained, satisfied. And then one day, I heard my brother playing out in the hallway. I thought he might be trying to drown me out, so I started to play louder, and he matched me. But when I played softer, he also changed his dynamic. When I sped up, he followed. When I changed keys, he added a surprised, amusing lick. I realized then that my brother had tricked the fates with his story. There was no girl, no golden boy sheen, no god that willed talent. Just my brother, who out of nothing had fashioned a third guitarist. Thank you.